Hi, I'm Ross O'Brien with the Economist Corporate Network here in Hong Kong. I'm here with Johann Poppenbeck from DSI, who's just flown in from Melbourne to join us at our annual CEO lunch on supply chain management. Now, Johann, we've been talking with our members about the role that technology plays when gathering and disseminating data throughout the supply chain. But you believe that there's an ongoing shift going on in the way that data is perhaps not necessarily collected, but how it can and should be used in the future.
Yeah, thanks, Ross. I think one of the analogies I like to use is that of driving a car and using the information available to you in driving that car. And you know, we sit there at the driver's wheel looking through the windscreen, which is kind of that big, and we have a rear vision mirror which is kind of that big. And my analogy is that we should be using our data, our historic data, and our data that's available to tell us what's coming in front of us, you know, it's what we're perceiving, in that sort of ratio.
Okay.
So we learn from the past, but if that windscreen starts to become, if the rear vision mirror starts to become too big, we start to have the wrong perspective and we're not as prepared for the ever-changing stuff in front of us, and the horizon in front of us. So it's about trying to get that mix and that ratio right of past data versus future data, you know, whether that be the weather patterns or buying trends that we see that come from retail data, whatever that is, using that as it pertains to the business we're in.
Right.
It's got to make sense to the business we're in.
Well, we heard a lot of discussion about how technology is allowing our members to get more accurate data on existing and potential demand, which then can cycle back into the production process. One key factor in all of this seems to be the prevalence and the proliferation of mobility and mobile devices in a firm's network.
Yeah, and you know, for our company, Data Systems International, DSI, we've seen how prevalent those devices have been in businesses over the 30 years that we've been working in this space. And you know, and coming back to the link between these devices and data, because originally it was about assuring data integrity by using devices to scan barcodes, RFID tags, and ensure that we had accurate data at the point of the inventory moving, and then providing visibility of where all that was in our supply chain. And now we see these same devices that have evolved into, you know, smartphones and things like that, to start to say, okay, it's not just about collecting the data now, it's about using the data. So I can pull in data from the cloud or from my social network or whatever, and use that in my decision making when and where I need to do it. So it's an evolution. It's not necessarily a revolution.
Right.
But I think for some people it is a revolution because they didn't embrace the evolution.
Right. No, that's a good point. In fact, a lot of the discussion was around this notion that workers, predominantly but not exclusively, younger workers that come into enterprises with expectations and half a dozen unique devices tend to think that things should be running within a supply chain or within an organization's enterprise processes should be running a lot, shall we say, faster than they actually are. So my question to you would be, are these expectations from the employer or employee's point of view, are they creating difficulties for enterprises who are on that evolutionary path?
If they're on the evolutionary path, I don't think it will create challenges or problems. I think if they're on the non-evolutionary path, meaning they're trying to control everything,
okay,
as opposed to embrace everything, I think they will come up with problems because in trying to control this stuff, it's, you know, you're trying to control predictions. If you can't control what hasn't happened yet,
right?
So you can control the outcomes to some degree. You can put things in place, but it's changing too quickly, and the time it takes enterprises to put these processes in place, they're already behind.
Got it.
So I think what our young people, and you know, the young person was used a lot here, but I think it's not just the young person, it's what's happening in society. We are wanting to be free. It's about freedom to do what I'm meant to do.
Right.
So I know what my job is, but does that mean I have to sit at my desk for 8 or 9 hours a day to do that job?
Right.
Or can I be free to, if I'm enjoying lunch with a customer or a prospect, and I need to, say, approve something to enable a business process to continue, rather than wait for me to come back to my desk,
right.
Can I be free to do that? And
Yeah.
I think that's really what we're talking about, and what these mobile devices and this whole enterprise mobility is trying to help us is say, well, let's be free. Let's really shrink down the time that it takes to be responsive in business,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And because that time is money.
Yes.
I mean, every time a purchase order, every minute a purchase order remains unapproved is another cost.
Right.
And so if I can shrink that time down, I get more value, and value is really what we're looking for.
Got it. Now, as a final thought, one of the recurring conversational threads today was about how often this particular thread recurs.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about ERP implementations 20 years ago. We're talking about mobilizing the supply chain today. There's always a discussion point around the supply chain and how technology is going to improve upon it. I was being a bit of a pessimist there when I suggested that the fact that we're always having this conversation means that things aren't moving forward, but you see things differently.
Yeah, I think if we're not having the conversation, I think we have a problem.
Right.
Because if we're not constantly changing, then we've stopped and we're stagnating. So I think there's another problem there.
Right.
I think if we keep talking about it and don't do anything about it, there's also a problem. But I think the fact that you have groups like this that are talking about it and doing something about it, and every time you take a step forward, there's going to be another step that needs to be taken.
Right.
That's the reality. If you stop, you're not going to go anywhere.
Right.
So it's about having, if I use the right pair of shoes on to keep taking the steps.
Got it.
Have the right tools in place so that you can keep taking the steps, so you don't have to keep reinventing all the time, that you can just keep embracing those changes, and also be willing to look back and say, yeah, we've done well,
Right.
Let's keep going on that,
Provided that rear view mirror is the right size.
it's like, exactly. Look at where we've come from. I mean, 15 years ago I was talking about the impact of the internet on enterprises.
Yes.
And look at where we are today.
Exactly.
We wouldn't be able to do without it. So I think it's, let's be open to it. Let's get the right tools in place. Let's focus on what we're good at in
Right.
business. If you're a shoe manufacturer, make shoes well. Get someone else to help you with the IT stuff.
Yeah.
And let's get that whole, I think the term was used, that ecosystem
Mm-hmm.
of value chain enablement in place, so that we can keep embracing the changes that are no doubt going to be coming at us. And
Right.
they're coming at us quicker.
Yes.
It's not every 10 years anymore. It's not every 7 years. I think your own forecasting has shown that it's probably every 3 to 5 years, right? So,
Absolutely. And who does 3 to 5 year forecasts anymore? Well, thank you very much, Johann. Thanks for being with us today. I'm Ross O'Brien with the Economist Corporate Network here in Hong Kong. You've been watching the wrap-up of our annual CEO Luncheon on Supply Chain Management. Thanks for watching.